What is going on, metalheads? You are listening to the most badass podcast on Spotify. Of course, Metal Massacre. It's your boy, Lucian, the weirdo with the beardo, sitting as always with the czar of Nar, Dustin Peters himself. We have a special treat for you today. The band Enterprise Earth is fresh off. I think you guys just rehearsed and just sat down and we're like, okay, it's interview time, because we got almost all of you guys.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we're about to rehearse, actually. So
okay.
we all woke up, had breakfast a little bit ago. He just showered. That's why his hair's all wet.
It's looking fresh.
Yeah. And we're here.
You can smell the Irish Spring through the camera. But again, yeah. So when we got the PR thing, they were like, they're gonna do rehearsal and then they'll hit you up. It makes more sense. Because like, dude, you guys are practicing at 9 or 10 in the morning. That's crazy.
I was gonna. My first question was gonna be, what made you want to do that? But now I kind of understand, and I'm happy for you that you don't have to rehearse first thing on a Monday morning.
No, that'd be brutal.
I could not be bothered to like scream at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah,
dude, same. Yeah, like your voice is just not where it's at. You're all gargly. You're still waking up. Unless somehow that would bring some weird edge to it. I don't know, but I digress. That'd be kind of fun. But yeah, dude, we were just talking about this, how funny it is that we got into contact with you guys, because we spoke to Alex from Dead Icarus just before the album drop. Had nothing but nice things to say about each and every one of you guys, and just like really instilled in us like the craft and how seriously you guys take this. And it's inspiring. It's inspiring to see bands kind of group together in one way or another, be it sharing members, be it friends, and have each other's back in that way, where you're going on an interview talking about your album and then you end up just talking about the other band half the time. I think that speaks volumes to you guys. So I do want to say, like, congratulations on everything you've been able to achieve so far. I know you were touring last year. You're just about to hit another tour now. Where are you kicking that off in?
Yeah, so we're about to fly to Europe. We fly tomorrow, actually. First show is in Oberhausen, Germany, and we have 29 shows in 32 days, I think.
Yeah. Jeez.
Over there. So yeah, we're co-headlining. It's our first co-headliner of Europe. Co-headlining alongside Distant, support from The Last 10 Seconds of Light and Harbinger.
That's cool. Hell yeah, dude. A month of Europe sounds so nice right now. We live in the middle of Nebraska and it's winter and we're like, please get me out of here. So if it's cold, but it's Europe, I feel like I could deal with that more than being like cold in America. There's just something like magical about it. It's almost like Christmas, like you're in Germany in the snow.
Well, I guess it all depends where you are. Where we are right now, where I live is Del Norte, Colorado, like South Central Colorado. I love it here. I personally love the cold in the winter here up in the mountains. But depending on where you are, the cold can really suck. If you're
exactly.
It's like proper region for it. So
yeah, give me like some scenic views, and I could be buried into snow for a month, drinking Heinies, and I'm fine. But as soon as you take me to Nebraska, where we're from, and it's just flat land and nothing to look at, and everything's dead, you're like,
no fun, yeah.
It's like a Lord of the Rings book outside, and I can't deal with it, guys. But
yeah, and not like the cool part of the Lord of the Rings book.
Yeah,
no. It's very much like the marshes, like those.
Yeah, definitely.
The dead marshes.
And
only the snow and the orcs, only the bullshit.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you guys for joining us today. I know you got a busy day and a lot to prep for and get ready for. So just thank you so much for making the time.
Yes. Yeah.
I do want to dig into the music a little bit here, because as of right now, there's only one thing available, The Descent. And when this is out,
The Descent, I think you guys numbered them, right?
One. Yeah.
One. Yeah.
Roman numeral I can't read.
No, I thought the same thing too. I was like,
I mean, it's technically an I, and I guess in English characters, right? It's like if you were to type it out, you would type in capital I to make it a Roman. But I guess it is a one.
It just the I is so much cooler than like the number one on there. Like that just sucks.
It does sound cool, like The Descent. Like
it's one, but there's well, like I was gonna say, once this actually airs in probably a week or two from now, the album will be out. We're 2 days away from it getting out there. You guys will be on tour by then. But so all I have to go off of is the one thing that's out there, and kind of, you have to do comparisons and contrastions. Something that I do want to say, before I even bring up anything about this specific song is that you guys are not pigeonholed into one style at all. There's clean singing, there's really heavy vocals, but also in multiple different styles. I'm sure it's been brought up before, maybe or maybe not, but if not, that it's almost uncanny how close you sound to Black Dahlia Murder at times with like those crazy highs that Trevor had. But like, yeah, that was like something that's always pulled out to me in your guys' music. And then this, like I was, if I had to write up a synopsis, it'd be, this is more of the same, but that's exactly what you want. And it still iterates further and further. I think you guys are it's obvious that you're still evolving, that this isn't like this isn't even your final form. Yeah. Like what you're doing is expanding. So from even just having the one song to go off of, I really enjoy it. I mean that earnestly and honestly. I'd say if I didn't. And I really think that it hits wildly hard, and it shows that you guys aren't afraid to try and do a bunch of different styles when it comes to heavier music. So really what I'm asking is, when we actually get our hands on this full thing, is it going to be a lot like some of your other albums where it's playing with a lot of different themes, tones, styles, and movements? Or did we try and kind of straight and narrow one path a little bit more?
To a degree, yes, but also no at the same time. Like, we did come into this wanting to complete a like more concentrated body of work. Like, we have no problem admitting that we're like all over the place. We know that. We wrote the songs. Yeah. So people are like, oh, you guys, there's just too much over here and too much over there. It's like, yeah, we know. Like, we put it together. But this one we partially just wanted to show that we are capable of putting out a body of work that is like very streamlined without it being like boring or too linear, really. So there's still a lot of interesting stuff that happens on the EP, but it's definitely a little bit more concentrated. We worked with like a motif. So there's like the beginning riff in the Descent comes back in a few of the other songs in various ways, even just as like a quick little turnaround of hitting just those same notes and then going into a completely different part. So we wanted to work with like a kind of central theme. And I mean, I'm hoping that people will be pleasantly surprised with the rest of the EP. There's definitely still like essence of Enterprise Earth via the last like 2-3 records. And but also like with this one, we took a completely different approach to writing. And Coda, our bass player, actually wrote a lot of the riffs too. So it was like it was coming from different places, so it definitely will feel a little bit different when people listen to the whole thing.
So as a band, do you feel like this EP is, I guess, you going from that experimental phase where you're just kind of all over the board, you're trying new things, you're seeing how you feel about it, to now this EP is like the hallmark of you guys pushing forward into maybe a more like focused and direct aesthetic and style, and also like, how do you do that lyrically? You know, like, I guess with the theme of it being the descent into madness, is that a theme that is explored in different ways in these songs, or is it all kind of sticking to the same ideology, I guess?
So I love like concept records and stuff. That's like one of the big things that got me into like the genre, really, is like the like storytelling and songwriting kind of aspect. Like Slice the Cake is one of my favorite bands of all time. Odyssey to the West is one of the most like incredible metal records ever. And it's just a huge fucking journey. So I like took a lot of inspiration from things like that and brought an idea to the guys about wanting to, I'm like super into like Lovecraftian horror and like some like, I'm just a big horror nerd anyways.
Hell yeah.
But I wanted to explore horror in the genre a little bit more. Like the last record was, you know, an anthology piece. So each song dealt with like a similar thing, all within the umbrella of like death and dying. And then this one, I really wanted to go from like, that's why all the tracks are numbered. So we go from like, before we gave them full titles, it was like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And I wrote out an entire like Google Doc synopsis of the story of the EP and sent it to everybody and was like, this is what I'm thinking. This is what I want. If we can make the music work with this, like I wanted to do something scary and like just different from what we had done before, really. But yeah, we took a super like unique approach, and it was really fun. But the theme of like the descent into madness, it is supposed to be like kind of a revolving door of like, okay, like the story starts at chapter 1 and it ends at chapter 6, and then at the end of chapter 6 it goes right back into the first song again, and you don't really know what happens at the end. It's like kind of a cliffhanger.
So I guess in a way, the fact that you never really get this closure, right? This fact that you're taking people on this journey, and then you're almost restarting it, and it becomes a whole new journey. Like the fact that they don't get the closure is almost the descent into madness, if you want to think about it. That's kind of a cool concept piece there. It's the album really that doesn't need to stop, you know?
Totally. Yeah. And like there's like a main character in the story and everything. I like write a lot in that kind of vein. And by the end of it, it's like, does he die? Does he not die? He's like trying to die, but can't. And then restarts at the very beginning again. And there's like some lyrical motifs that come through as well. I like tried to have a lot of fun with like making it something that has like little Easter eggs in it, and like people being able to like read along and listen along and then pick out new things they didn't have before. But I wanted to keep that like madness thing with the like no closure. It's just like, man, I don't know what the fuck happened to this guy, and then it just restarts again. It sucks.
I love that. I think that's such a fun idea and such a fun like a bit of finality there, that the closure is no closure, and that's just another layer to the journey. And I feel like you and I kind of see the same world in some ways with like horror and writing. Like I in my writing, I try to do, what's personal to me, but I'll give it the motif or the mask of something I enjoy.
Totally. Yeah.
And kind of make it something new altogether. And I'm a huge fan for when you find a meaning and you find an Easter egg, but then you have no idea that this is tying into 5 other things down then the next 4 minutes, and it all means something together. Like I gotta tip my hat to you for that. I think that's a really neat idea, man, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely had a lot of fun with it. And I think that like as far as like personal writing versus like true just like storytelling kind of thing, you can't really take the person out of it anyways. Like there are so many aspects of myself and like my life and my mental struggles and all this kind of shit involved in the writing of this EP, but obviously pushed to an extreme on like a fictional character. It was super cool. And then we wrote the music based around that too. I sent that Google Doc and was like, this is the vibe, this is the setting. I gave like weather conditions and like the area that it's in geographically and all of this kind of shit, and sent that over to everybody else. I wasn't here for the writing session, so I did all of my stuff remote. And then sent this list of like, this is kind of what I feel like it needs to sound like. Let's try and do this. And if it sucks, then great, we don't do this again. And it was cool. So the boys just wrote based off of my synopsis, and it was cool hearing how they translated my words without it even being lyrical yet, just me like word vomiting into my computer, and then hearing what they did with all of that musically was super sick.
Yeah, man, I love that. Sorry, I didn't cut you off. That's just so cool.
Okay. I was just going to add on to like the musical end. Like it was the first time we had done that. First time I personally had done that too, and it was just really, really fun to like write an entire body of work based off of like a story, like based off of that. And I got a good example. The track will be out on Thursday, but the second track, Words and Whispers, like there's this like there's a line in the song called "It feels like a knife being driven into the base of my skull."
Yeah,
and that's what it starts off. And so we were like, all right, like what the fuck does that sound like? And then we made this crazy ass riff, like with this dissonant tapping and pick scrapes and all this like gnarly stuff with chugging.
It's gross.
So like we're like, all right, that's what that sounds like to us, I guess, and we would be, as we were writing, we would review the story and be like, okay, this is what the story is here. Like, what does that sound like? Or if we would hit a flow instrumentally and get stuck, we'd go back to the story and be like, okay, like let's reference the story and see if we can get that inspiration back and continue on.
That's really, I've heard of people doing some stuff separately. I mean, obviously, to get out of the metal skit for a second, you hear bands like Postal Service, how they're just mailing stuff back and forth. And it is possible to make music and not be in the same room with other people nowadays.
Totally.
But like to sit there and like have a whole written story, I feel like that's so rare musically, and maybe it's not. Maybe I'm crazy, but I feel like is that rare? Is that rare for you to like have a whole story ahead before music?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's too. I mean, unless it's like a concept album thing where there's like a idea maybe in front of the music, but I don't think it's something too common that bands do these days. Honestly.
No, most like concept records nowadays, I feel like are very like not everything's thrown together very well. It'll be like, oh, here's this album about this thing, but then if you read along and listen along, it's like feels like there's a lot of like filler in the stories and nothing like makes a whole lot of sense. And I tried really hard to make it all cohesive and make it make sense and like be able to like I would love to be able to put out like a little like very small book of just like the lyrics for the EP and like a nice cool little like black leather bound journal kind of vibe, and have people be able to just read it and not have to listen at the same time. Like I wanted it to make sense reading. There's this band Cock Angren that's like a like super conceptually heavy like black metal band, really fucking cool shit. But they have an album, I think it's called This Is No Fairy Tale. But that record, I listened to it years ago, like probably a decade ago, honestly. And I remember I was like playing fucking Black Ops and listening to it, and I was like, dude, this is crazy. And then I opened lyrics and read everything, and you can read it like a book. You don't have to listen to it at all. The way that all the lyrics are put out is super digestible just from sitting there and reading. And that kind of stuck with me. And I feel like I've never been able to like really do that yet until now. And this is like the closest that I've been able to get to it.
It's a cool outlet to have for it, man.
For sure. Yeah. Like it immediately, I'm starting to think about this EP, and it's got a certain length to it, which I think is just about where you want it to be. And I'm sitting here going, what movie would I watch this to?
Yeah, dude.
I guess, do you guys have like in your head, is there like just a visuals of a movie that kind of goes with the whole theme here?
Or I guess it'd probably be like an episode of a TV series, maybe, because it's like the EP's like what 25-ish minutes long, so somewhere around 25. So it could be like an episode of a TV show.
Yeah,
I don't know. Is there anything that come to mind for you?
I mean, I don't know if you guys ever watched the series Hannibal.
Yeah.
Okay. So like, the way that he like super manipulates, I forget the other character's name, the like detective guy. I'm like, but the way that he like manipulates him into like thinking that he's this like murderous like person really, and that he's capable of doing these horrible things. But it's like super subliminal, that kind of thing, like Silence of the Lambs-esque, like very like Hannibal Lecter kind of like vibe. Like I would watch an episode of Hannibal to this EP and be like, oh yeah, this makes sense. There's a bunch of like gnarly shit in here and like
that's
some
cool
kind of moments as well. But like,
psychological horror.
Yeah, definitely. I read a lot of like short stories when I was putting this together. There's a author, his name's Thomas Ligotti, and he took a lot of inspiration from Lovecraft and similar writers. But his stuff was all very like psychological horror. And so I read a ton of his works while I was putting all of this together. And so I think more like books made more of a difference in this EP than like film did, which I mean, I'm super into horror movies and everything too. So it's like kind of surprising that I took a turn into like, oh, I'm writing based off a book instead of like A24 movies.
Well, honestly, it's not though, because talking to you now, you do seem very like in tune with psychological horror as that being your thing. So like, what is more psychological than reading horror? You know what I mean? Like that is way more broader strokes than I feel like a movie can be, because movies are condensed, you know.
Yeah, super fun.
Tell me you've seen A Color Out of Space, any of you guys, now that you're Lovecraftian horror, because I'm sitting there, I kind of want to listen to that and watch that movie. Like,
you should.
That'd be so good.
Put on A Color Out of Space, light up a doink, put on that album. You're having an afternoon, brother.
I'm a sucker for that. One of my buddies' bands back in the day, very, very niche indie band here in Omaha, they used to write entire concert sets to movies, and they just like put on The Wizard of Oz, the original, and just sit there and try to write to it. And I thought that's such a fun exercise. Like, I think more bands should even try to do stuff like that. Maybe in the practice of doing something like that, you find something you never knew you liked, you know. And
totally.
I think as artists, it's so important for us to keep pushing ourselves and keep putting ourselves in places we love, but places that also like challenge us, you know? And
exercise is really important as an artist and a musician and a writer and all this stuff. And I think that what we did with this EP was an exercise, and it like felt really good to do something a little bit different. And again, just proving that we can. Like I don't really care how much people love what I do or what I don't do.
Sure.
I've been saying this for the past like couple of weeks that I just like to write things that I want to listen to. I like listening to my own music. It's cool. That's like the reason why we do it, you know? But the exercise of proving that we can do something different and pull out of the box a little bit was like definitely worth the time that we spent on this, even if people hate it, which I fucking doubt that they will. It's like, man, well, at least we knew that we were able to like accomplish this goal, and then we can move forward and do whatever we need to do moving forward.
Yeah.
Having it not be out as the time of recording, I guess this would be a good question to ask, actually, because then once we get it back, it'll feed in.
Yeah.
Having like one of the most important things that like I guess I've heard said, because my dad plays guitar with us a lot and he plays in a band that we're in together, which is super sick, but it's something that he's always like, hey, when you find after a practice the next day that you're humming your own songs to yourself or you're having your own song stuck in your head, you got something, whether you think that's going to sell or what, if it's in your head, you like it. So what I'm asking, I guess now is like, do each one of you have a favorite song on this album for any specific reason that for you, something that sticks in your head?
For sure. My personal favorite would probably be the last song, Shapeshifter, for a multitude of reasons. As Travis said, our bassist Coda wrote a very large portion of this one. And whereas in the past, perhaps I would have written most of the instrumentation, but this time I was going through a like difficult time in my life, so I was like struggling to be creative. Actually, fortunately, Coda was able to step up to the plate. But that song, I wrote the majority of the instrumentation.
Yeah,
and
that had that one for a while.
Yeah, and I was going through this difficult process in life. That was the thing that came out like pretty fast too. It was like very strong. So emotionally, that one's like a very important one for me. My personal reasons aside, like just this general structure and flow of that song, I just think is like really cool.
It's
again, you'll hear it on Thursday, but it starts off with this like quick little like kind of pretty creepy clean guitar thing, but then it just hits you in the dick like 15 seconds in, and then pretty much doesn't let up. So I like the peaks and valleys of that one and the flow of it, and Travis's lyrics and delivery on that one was like really cool too. And it's like also the last one at the end of the EP that kind of entices you, like as Travis was saying, to kind of circle back to the beginning, because it kind of ends in a similar way, well, with the same lyrical line that it starts at. That the entire EP starts out.
Yeah,
I'm a sucker for that shit, dude. That's awesome.
Yeah, I'd say for me, I don't know. There's a lot of moments like you're kind of saying that like have stuck in my head throughout the record. So it's really hard for me to like pick a singular song. I feel like I have a few that are like my favorites. But if I'm like forced to pick one, I'd probably say like the fourth song, just because I'm a big like Melodeath nerd, and that
one's also great too.
Very like a lot of like cool melodic guitar work in the beginning, and the choruses really cool, lots of blast beats and stuff like that. It's a lot of fun. So I would probably go with that one. But yeah, there's a lot of moments, kind of like you were saying, that I'll just like, either like lyrical parts that Travis has, or just like certain riffs that I'm like humming in my head, and I'm like, oh, it's probably a good time.
Yeah.
Dude, hell yeah.
It's the best feeling, man. Like when your music and what you make is getting stuck in your head, I feel like not only do you know you're on the right track, but you're sitting there soaking it up.
You're stoked.
Mentally, you're back in a lawn chair on the beach, just jamming in your head. Like I love it.
Yeah, I think my favorite song on the EP is either the third track, Shadows Below, or probably also the fourth track. Those are like two of my favorites, especially like vocally. I got to do a lot of really fun stuff on both of those songs. Like in Chasms of Hell, I did this like Danny Filth like tea kettle screech in the chorus, and it's like it's in there. You can definitely hear it. It's not the main part. I wanted it to just be there. Like it just needed that extra layer.
It sounds like a melodic layer almost, or like you might think it's like a synth or a guitar noise, but it's him just screeching in the background.
I do all the time. I'll like double cup the mic and just screech as loud as I fucking can, and it bothers the shit out of everyone, but I love it. And so I was like, I kind of can do it now.
Put it in, man. It's going there. I need it. It fills it out for me. I love that.
So like that was really fun. I've always like said that I'm like, man, if I could do like the Danny Filth just fucking like bat screech, like I would feel complete as a vocalist. And so I was able to like hit a note and keep it pretty consistent. Yeah. We only did a few takes of it. And I did 2 different ones. And it was cool. So like that part kind of makes that song for me, just because it's like, oh man, I did it, sick. But Glow has like probably like some of the more aggressive vocals that I was able to lay down on it. And it just like the song starts with vocals too. It doesn't start with anything else. So it was like very like Behemoth-esque. That's like also one of my like biggest influences vocally is like Nergal. So that was one of my favorites. But I think I also like, I love the songs as a whole, but I get really attached to like one-liners, and like, they don't even have to be super important, but I just will like stick, like I'll have like one line in one song get stuck in my head for a long time, but it's like my line. I'm like, well, that's cool. I like, I'm glad that I was able to write something that like gets stuck in my head, hopefully gets stuck in other people's heads. Like the ending of the Descent is like, we've seen like a couple comments and stuff being like, dude, like kerosene in your mouth is just like fucking going in there all the time, because it's like it fits the cadence really well, it's catchy, it's fun to say. So that's like more of a bigger thing for me. It's just like keeping like the line in mind. But as far as favorite song, I think 3 or 4.
Well, and you brought up something important there. It's like it's fun to say, and also no one has said it. Like, you have now coined something that no other band has specifically said that, and that's such a rare thing anymore with lyrics.
Totally,
everyone's kind of in this, you want to make it brutal, you want to make it heavy, you want the vocals that you're doing the lyrics to inflect what's going on, but you also don't want it to just be generic. Everyone's trying to put their own spin on something, and I think when you can find something that catchy that you could almost put on a t-shirt, I mean, let's face it, you might as well. It's so cool. Like that is so rare, and I feel like that's one of those things in metal history where people are going to look back on, listing the best phrases in music, and I think that's going to be one of yours, to be honest.
Hey, man, thank you. I mean, I like love the era of deathcore where everybody had the fucking block font lyrics on the back of the shirt.
I was just about to say.
So like
big like Austin 316.
So if I can get a line out that people want on the back of a shirt, I'm like, fuck, I made it.
Dude, totally. The despised icon kind of ocean.
Dude.
See, and that's what I like about your band so much is you guys have this marriage of melodic and deathcore. And to be honest with you, like when I was first, like someone first kind of told me the sound, and before I even listened to it, I went, I don't know if that's going to work. Because like how many times has it not worked in history? You know what I mean? Like melodic and deathcore are just 2 completely different beasts. So to say that you're taming both of them, and not only that, but getting them to work in tandem with each other, be it by the drums, by the guitar, like, and throwing in the vocals and crunching it up with that bass, dude, you guys have something that's really unique here.
You really do. And the fact that you've been not afraid to make these instrumentals. I'm just kind of scrolling through. It's always like looking at album art too. Like that's obviously we just did an episode that would like right before this one that was like some of our favorite metal covers of all time. And that's a list. It's subjective, but I'm looking at all of your guys' stuff. And again, it shows such a level of obviously musical proficiency, but exactly like he was saying, like that blend that you guys do, even if it is difficult to do the deathcore stuff with it, not only does it work, but then you have this avenue where you're able to do all of this instrumental work and put out songs that are completely listenable metal with it. That's such a hard road to go down, such a difficult thing to do right. So I have not even asking a question. I'm just saying hats hats off, sir.
Our
Like,
hats are both off. No, we really appreciate what you guys have achieved so far. And honestly, I can't wait to see the door that this EP opens up for you for the future. And not even just like with what you're doing with the band, but like creatively, what's the next big thing after that? You know, like I feel like this is putting you guys, like we said, more in a specific place. And it's taking all the things that you learned through your more experimental phases, I guess you say, and it's bringing out the best of them. Like you still have the energy of Psalm of Agony, which I think is probably guilty pleasure, like one of my favorite songs you guys have ever put out, because it's just got this unbreakable behemoth, like giant dude walking down the alley towards you kind of feeling, you know, that you don't get from a lot of metal anymore, to be honest. Like everyone's focusing on the heavy breakdowns and the chord progression, but it's so hard to go deathcore and metalcore and like melodic at the same time, unless you're doing it very, you know, experimental. But I think you guys have learned all these great lessons, and maybe I'm reaching here too much. Tell me if I am. But
no, this is all accurate. Yeah.
It feels like you've learned all these really good lessons musically throughout having the ability to be so experimental that now it's a whole different beast.
Yeah. I mean, we did like The Chosen and Death and Anthology are not too far off from each other. I think that people think that they're much further off from each other than they are because of the vocalist change. I think that was a huge thing for people. Like, if you listen to the instrumentals of both records, they're not too different. They're both very experimental deathcore. And like we have been saying for a while that we're like not really a deathcore band anymore. This is the most deathcore that we've been since
Embodiment.
Really,
probably, or Patient Zero.
Yeah, right. So we loosely use the like term deathcore for ourselves. We still like want to belong in that space. We love the deathcore scene, so we like being part of it a lot. But through like all the experimentation and stuff, I mean, we like put out Blood and Teeth on that last record, and it was extremely polarizing. Technically, the song wasn't even written to be an Enterprise Earth song. It was just like I was fooling around on a piano in a green room, and Gabe was like, "Oh, this is sick. Let's like put some kind of like 8-string shit behind it." And I was like, "All right, cool. Let's see what it does." And like for some people, it's their favorite song. Other people fucking hate it, and that's totally okay. But we got all of that out of the way. And like you said, learn those lessons too of like, it's fun to be the polarizing band, but at the same time, not everybody wants to be the polarizing band all the time. So this EP was definitely us being like, we still belong on heavy tours. We still belong like sharing stages with extremely heavy bands, and want people to like recognize that and not just be like, oh yeah, they're like too weird for metalcore. They're like too metalcore for deathcore, but too prog for like this or that. You know, like we always like kind of have like a missing leg somewhere. So this EP was definitely us trying to like put both feet on the ground, but stay true to like being Enterprise Earth. They're still singing on the EP. Get the fuck over it. Like it happens.
No, dude,
you know?
I think that's one of my favorite things that you guys do. And that's, and you know, like I said, there's something I'll bring back up because I do want to just give some accolades to each one of you. By the way, like I said, the bass tone, even though he's not here, love it. Fills out the sound, doesn't overtake anything where it's not supposed to. Really just adds meat to what already is there. The guitar tone is kind of stayed true, but you're willing to move and shape and do clean stuff. And the drumming, bro, I can't walk and chew gum. So like the drumming is monstrous, and it's something that I really enjoy. We might have got them to freeze, but
oh no.
We might have froze, but I'll keep going for a second. But while we get them back, just in case they can hear us or not, this album is absolutely something that I think while they reload, that it's evolving them. It's evolving them forward. Like this isn't something that I feel like is pigeonholing them, like to use that term again. But I do think exactly what Trevor there was saying before they went, is that I love the clean singing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like I even when he's using different vocal styles, if it's supposed to be super gurgly, so be it. But I really love this guy's like how he's almost using just like a heavy breath of air to push a fucking sound out. It's very clean. Like you can understand. He's very legible in almost everything he's doing, which is honestly wildly difficult to do.
Well, and it's, I think that's the biggest struggle with deathcore vocals, but metal vocals at all, is how do you make it legible? And how do I make it to where people aren't struggling to understand me? And obviously there's the niche of you don't have to, I mean, when I'm doing vocals, there's stuff I know that people aren't going to understand.
Sure.
And then like when we were just in the studio trying to enunciate things and really push it out. And
it's so fucking hard to do, dude.
Because when you're on stage, it's so much different than recording. I mean, like, and that, I mean, I, like me specifically, have to have something in my hands or I can't do it, or be cupping my hands or just something like that to get myself in the zone. But you're always going to be putting more emphasis in the studio. And you can really tell that, especially with singing, they're trying to keep that an emphasis of the band, which I really respect. I think too many metal bands are afraid to go there, and I don't think they are, which I think is cool.
No, I'm actually really digging this. And like, again, we're for those of you that aren't on video, we're patiently waiting to see if they can pop back in. But something that really stuck out to me, and again, if they don't, we'll wrap this up and we're pros. We can do this on the fly. But is the album art is always kind of different too. Like when we did that last episode where we were talking about, like, especially with like Judas Priest, for an example, like they have that same, they found something and it works and it brands them. So let's use that, but iterate on it. All these guys' album artwork is fucking crazy. Like, honestly, they like we talked about, one of the most important things that a lot of them do is paint a picture, but they're not stuck to one thing. Like, it seems like each one of these singles is kind of like, if it doesn't just have the same picture, the singles have the artwork that melds to the overall album's artwork, which is something that we've been doing with Molten as well. Like every song having its own feel, push, and kind of taste to it almost. But yeah, they've gone from like stained glass, like church painting looking things with knights on them to like obviously a lot more like just typical heavy metal shit where it's blood, guts, movements, crazy lettering, spines, fucking weapons. There's the wizard. I see the one with the wizard and the lantern. Like, we gotta have that, bro. Gotta have. But then also, like this newest one, I don't know if you, when you do have a chance to look at, or any of you, for some reason, I think it's just the face in the top right. Really reminds me of that book that everyone would read back in elementary school, is like Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. That like weird pencil sketch, fucking just like something about it makes your skin crawl, even if it's not like the grossest or craziest looking thing. Their album art for all of these is really dope, and I think it's capturing exactly what this is trying to achieve when they're talking about the descent into madness and so on and so on. But yeah, the only other thing that's really different, and maybe it's just the single itself, is that because I guess I see it on a couple other things, especially the instrumentals, is that they're not using their big logo, their big font, like right in the center of the album. They kind of put it off to the side, almost more like an artist signing their name, very small in the bottom.
I really like that.
Yeah,
I think it's fine to have your stuff at the top and make it look official. I think it looks good, but I like mixing it up. I like it when bands don't even put their name on the album, because we live in a nowadays where people don't really have physical copies of stuff anymore. So you're still going to see the name and the album name at the bottom. You're still going to know who it is. And to me, I think that's also a really clean way of having an album art. It's interesting to see their progression for sure. Like going from putting it at the bottom to the top to now in the side, like it's a very clear moniker of like them changing, and
we're reading into things, but like at the same time, I don't think so much, because all of these are obviously conscious decisions that you make when you are, if you care about your product, you're thinking about almost every decision as you make them. And some stuff, I mean, like, me, I'm pretty laissez-faire about some things where everyone's like, hey, is there like, because Jake, when we were like doing stuff with it, be like, I wish that the font was outlined in a little thinner of a black fine line. And so I was like, it looks sick, print it, that's our logo.
You're like, I don't care.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, for want of a better way to say it, is just like, I cannot be bothered with that. Like, if you people who are much more artistic and creative in your brain than I am see something that's bothering your OCD or think would be sick, I'm all fucking ears. But like, yeah. And I mean, like, again, all artists, I have that side in me that I can see stuff, but just having that logical base to it. Like, the last thing that I was saying, I can kickbox, but I can barely walk and shoot gun when it comes to trying to play drums or understand multiple things at once. I feel like if I sat down, I could probably do it, but that's a story for another day. So like I think that this album really, from even just the taste that we've gotten, and now that all of you listening, once you hear this, it's out. So go run it up for them, and make sure that we show them some love, and we'll try and catch them back maybe at a different time to finish the interview, maybe after tour or something if they aren't able to reconnect.
Yeah, I'm talking to their manager right now to see if they're going to come back. So I guess this is a exclusive first for Metal Massacre. This has never happened before. We're actually just hanging out waiting to see if they're coming back, which I'd love to kind of chat a little bit longer, but if they got to get to rehearsal as well, I totally understand. But yeah. I really am excited for this EP to drop. I think we should do a review of it.
Yeah, I think we should. And,
we time got away from us. We kind of went to an early vacation last year. I think we should do the Dead Icarus album and the Enterprise Earth.
Yeah, why not?
In like a double spin kind of an episode where maybe we sit down and listen to each one and give our thoughts. I think that obviously I think Enterprise Earth should come first because it's the newer one. We just spoke to them, and then we can do, kind of on the back end do a Dead Icarus review, because that was something I had on my list last year that there's a couple things I didn't feel like I got to, and that was one of them. I definitely think these two, believe in my mind, should be paired together, and they're both the same. When you talk to these guys, you kind of hear a little bit of what Alex was saying. He's very much, I want to make something for me. I'm not making this for other people. This isn't pop music in the 90s where we're marketing you to 50-year-olds, and it's like it has to be this. And that's the thing about metal, what they want, and I think that's so rare. Even with metal, like how many times do we meet bands and they love what they're doing, but it's very much like we're trying to hit this demographic. And these guys are like, we don't fucking care what demographic we hit. This is for us, and I almost respect that more because, I know you believe this as much as I do. Music is very therapeutic. It's a good outlet to get things out. And
100%, man. It's why people listen to it at the gym. It's why people listen to it when they're mad or when they're happy. Or like, honestly, most of the times I listen to music or when I'm like in a great mood. Like that's the most, because otherwise, like it's usually, I listen to a lot of podcasts. That's why we do this. And it's like, honestly, I listen to more podcasts than I do music on most times because I just love soaking in information. But then it's like when I'm in a great mood or I'm driving to work trying to there's a reason, like you said, it's therapeutic. Even if it's, in that case, usually makes it sound like I need to fix something, but it's like, no, I want to keep this good feeling going. And so I'll listen to like some of my favorite shit, even if it is, whether it's heavy or angry or happy and light or rap or hip, it doesn't matter, man. But I guess also something that I think that maybe in the world of singers, songwriters stuff, because back in the day, it was a lot more common for like, hey, we have a house studio band and we're going to bring in Tina Turner to sing the song that Joe Blow wrote. Yeah. But he wrote it with her voice in mind. And then this and this and this. It happens in all genres of music. And it definitely happens at a higher level in metal. But I feel like in heavier music or in music that have full bands because let's be honest, we all listening to this metal podcast are aware of, gatekeeping and, scenes and how like I'm sure that there's a jazz scene. I'm not in it. There's a blues scene. And like those people probably know all the locals and it's like the same kind of thing. It's how you dress, it's how you walk, how you talk, but metal is the embodiment of that shit. And like in the same way that, all styles, I could go rap has their own scene and it's who you are and who you know. And like, but I think that in pop and especially older generations of music and a lot more in rap too, where you have features and that happens a lot more, is that there is the singer-songwriter thing, and that doesn't happen in metal where they were saying their bass player in this instance was writing a lot of their riffs and like trying to gather their tracks for them. That just gives it a different style, but it's still them. Like you don't have someone writing the lyrics for him. This isn't hired guns. Hey, we have all these songs written. We need a band to perform them. Like I've been a part of that. And I was just part of a reformation of one of the bands we're doing where there's no like, fuck everybody and I hate all of you and we're never going to talk again. But it was more like, we did join that band because someone had a bunch of ideas that they had basically self-produced. And one of the very first episodes that we ever did of this show, I brought up the band Tragic Forms. They're out of Texas. They're small. We were just getting started and trying to figure out what we wanted to do with the direction of the show. And that guy still, actually, I talk to him every now and again on Instagram, and like, like all of each other's shit and stuff. And he's always shouting us out. But that's because that guy, to bring it up, was that's what he did. He's writing and making all of this, and then he's like, and I need a band to come with me. This is what we're playing though. And so I guess that element is almost like splitting hairs between singer-songwriter stuff, but you still have people that have to do it live. I mean, the Black Keys are 2 guys, but they have a full live band. And, you know, Marcus, I think it's Marcus King. He's like this country kind of singer. He's got a crazy voice and he's real young, but he's out there and he brings a whole band with him when he needs it.
Yeah, it's not uncommon to have most of these be like 2-person projects that are really only these 2 people, and then you have people you pick up for the road, you know, or even sometimes for studio.
And you know, and they get hired or whatever it is. But I do think that a lot of what maybe is overlooked in harder, heavier music is the fact that usually it is a band. Like it is people sitting down and writing this all together, whether they're in the same room, like they were saying, or they're across the country and sending ideas. Cause that's just the nature of the beast that we have nowadays. Right? Everybody, if you're smart, you got one of these interfaces or a Focusrite or something that I could just write shit here.
Yeah.
Email it over to Mike and here we go.
It is pretty cool to see. I mean, it's kind of inspirational for those people listening or watching that are like, you know, I don't live near anybody. I want to make music. Well, you still can. I mean,
you certainly can.
There are ways to do it, and this is a testament to that, if anything. So I did actually get word back from their manager. Looks like they lost power in the middle of the interview. So unfortunately, Enterprise Earth won't be rejoining us for this episode, but we are in talks to keep in touch and maybe circle back to this conversation after their tour. So we'll see if that hopefully works out.
The one thing I did want to ask him too, though, is I was like, that was the one thing we're gonna get to is because I really wanted to give him a chance and their vocalist to really give a chance to explain himself, which I think he did well. But then I was like, all right, so what is it like doing the crossover with the differences between those 2 bands and having to pull double duty in one night and play basically 2 different sets is obviously that's mentally taxing and physically you're tired, but you're young enough you can do it. And
well, I think after tour would be a great time to talk because even though it's not Dedekerus and Enterprise Earth playing, it's still, you know, going to be on his mind after a tour, I'm sure. So maybe it'd be good to have the differences of tours as a conversation. Like, how's the tour differ for you? So we'll circle back to Enterprise Earth after they get back from Europe, hanging out in the snow in Germany and doing all that cool shit. I'm excited for the boys. Thank you guys all for joining us. We appreciate Enterprise Earth for being here. Really nice dudes. And honestly, the one thing I love is when you're talking to somebody and they give you so much. You know, people don't have to give you anything in these interviews. They could treat it like a presser. They could, totally, 110% team effort. You know,
locker room post game.
Right. They could do that to you, and I always appreciate it when you get these big tough metal dudes in here and they're willing to talk about, you know, their creativeness and their hearts. And I think that's something that kind of makes things different for people. So thank you again to Enterprise Earth. Thank you to Unchained Management for having these guys on. I want them back. So I think this will probably be a season 4 interview that we'll circle back to.
Thank you again to Enterprise Earth, really, for giving us the time to do that. As we mentioned, I think it was they had a power failure. Basically, the power went out in their whole house. The internet, and because they were recording from a laptop, it was over from there. They couldn't do anything. And actually, you know, like they were saying, they're supposed to go on tour in 2 days. They're about to rehearse. I hope that everything went well for them, so they can get that and not just leave their house and just be like, well, I hope it doesn't fucking die. And
right. I hope they got everything figured out too before they left. I'm sure it's all right. That shit always happens. And, you know, I'd be lying if I said it was the first time something like that happened on this show. So,
easy enough. We just wanted to come back in and skip some of the formalities and say, hey, so we kind of had to end the interview there. But we figured now that a few days have passed and we're trying to put this episode out, no better way to wrap it up than actually have some of the album reviewed because it's out now. And so again, as we'll just give you from the top, Descent into Madness, 6 songs, 24.5 minutes or so, all titled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And as he was mentioning in the show, like it kind of has this flow of lyricism that provides good content as well. I want to let you kind of go first on this because I have some thoughts that are almost a little bit more individual, but yeah, man, after getting to hear the whole album, I'm pleasantly stoked on it. It reminds me of a lot of things.
Yeah, it kind of brings me back to that just out of high school deathcore feeling, you know, that me and you kind of bonded over back in the day, and we still kind of do. I noticed something when I have to look down and remember what song I'm listening to. I like that. The whole thing was great. Let me just start there. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a good coming to form for the band to really show off what they can do, you know, and not to say that they haven't before, but I think this EP really, they shine, you know, really, it shows off the best parts of every member of this band. My favorite, I think, the one that I looked down at the track multiple times and I was like, this is still the same song. Like, that's insane. Was Chasms of Hell, number 4.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude,
man.
They just go so fucking hard on that song. Like,
the kick
I think that's the standout for me.
Insane, the double bass in this whole album. And obviously, you know, everybody can trigger stuff and do it at demo or like online or use MIDI, but like if you can't do it live, then what does it matter? And I know that they can do it live. So this is insanity levels of drumming on this entire album. It really holds the whole thing together for me because a lot of shit shines and the drums shine here and there as well. But like, again, let's be honest, that's the biggest force of sound that you have generally. And it's like when it really stands out to me, the best way to do that is by not standing out at all. And that's something that just means that you have performed your job perfectly.
Yeah.
Everything else is allowed to highlight. And when you still hear the insane speed of double bass and big full rhythm sections that use more than just cymbals for accents, lots of toms, lots of hits, lots of crashes. I was very impressed by the drumming on this album. And I always kind of say backhanded compliment, not like I mean it, but it's the truth here. Where I say like it doesn't stand out at all, meaning it just does its job so well.
Yeah,
I was very impressed by that. And like we told them in the interview, like they're not afraid to change styles and use a bunch of different, you know, styles again, to say that for one of a better term, they're just not afraid to use some like lower gurgles or higher screams or clean tracks with guitars or almost just something really light and bright for a little while to really put emphasis into each one of these having a different feel. And
I think that's a good word is emphasis. Like there's a good like emphasis on everyone in the band at certain points in these songs. The drums, I think you're right. They don't stand out in the way of like you're just listening to the drums. Like they fit the pace really well. But there were certain times where I literally was like, holy fucking shit to the drummer. Like it stood out to me in the way where I had to go back and listen to it again. And like, it gave me ideas, you know what I mean? For like stuff I want to do with our band is like, oh, what if we had a drum part like this? Like when you can listen to something and actively be inspired by it, I think it's not only is it doing its job, but it's opening up a new avenue for the band itself. Cause then you start to inspire other people to maybe do what you're doing. And I know one of the themes of this band was they never really felt like they fit in any of the genres they're in. And maybe that kind of made it hard to book or maybe it made it easy to book, but I think this really solidifies them more in that that mixture of deathcore and that melodic metal, which I think before this album or before this EP, I would have said that that's kind of a risky move, or maybe not risky, but like you only get it from the vocals and then you only get this from the music and you just put them together and that's what makes it that. But I feel like this EP, they really wove those two genres together well, and not just in vocals and guitar work. Like everybody was full force on this, and you know, like so. I think before this EP, it would have been maybe controversial to say we're a deathcore melodic metal band, but I think this EP, it makes a lot more sense, you know. And I think people listening to this EP, you know, bookers, agents, all these people are going to be like, oh, okay. this does fit into both these categories. And I think this is going to be one of those things where after this EP, they start noticing like they're getting different tours, they're getting different shows, they're getting in with maybe heavier bands. And, that's not always a bad thing.
Right. No, you're 100% true there. Like it's always a risk trying to pigeonhole yourself into one spot, but it's also the same risk to be as weird as possible and like to also just mix up a bunch of stuff because no one really knows where you sit, and then you might get stuck on a bunch of different stuff. But that's also when we mentioned like them going on tour with Necro, like that they're also something that doesn't really sit in one spot. So like you can find those friends and those acquaintances through that. And instead of like really going like song by song by song through this, because I would really highly suggest all of you just go listen to this for yourself. Yeah. Like this one is it might, I will say first, if you're like a fan of the Black Dahlia Murder, besides just the Trevor Sinnett kind of vocal style that he has for a lot of it, which is sick. If you're a fan of like As Blood Runs Black, or if you're a fan of Suicide Silence, like earlier stuff, like all the stuff we were talking about in like the late thousands, early teens, like that kind of area, this is definitely right up your alley. Like this is that it's not afraid to get fucking wild, full of guitar solos that don't overstay their welcome like they do in thrash on purpose half the time, which is what people want. They want 9 solos and that fucking wailing ass stuff. But this is tasteful, like a lot of melodic tapping and sweeping, the stuff that you would expect, but in a really well placed and well done way. And it's only 6 songs and it's only 25 minutes. So like I really want to encourage people, instead of having us be like, what do you feel about Shadows Below? Well, let me just tell you, all of these songs are something that like if it popped up, regardless of the fact that he said that he was building a story throughout all of these, or like some way to tie back to the center. Great album to listen to straight through then for that, and like read the lyrics and all of that, but also just as impactful if it's just a like song in your playlist and it just comes up out of nowhere. I don't think there's a singer song on this album because of that, or this EP, whatever, that feels out of place. There doesn't feel like, oh, this has to work here because it's like an interlude for this here. All of these stand tough on their own, which is really hard to do. But also, especially, I would say really hard to do when it's with the caveat of you're trying to actually like build like a soundscape and like a theme, and this all transcends one to the next and gives full circle closure. It's difficult to not feel like filler's not the right word, but then like I have to do this to make this feel like this.
Right.
This all stands alone just as much as it pulls this whole story together.
I think that's a really good point, because at no point during this 6-track EP did I ever feel like they had a filler song, or did I ever feel like they were missing anything. So I think 6 songs was kind of the perfect length for this, at least to just show off this idea. And it does come full circle musically. And I think by the end of it, I was like, I want to listen to the first track again. You know what I mean? Like it was a good roller coaster where I wanted to ride it again. And to be honest with you, I don't really get that feeling with music sometimes. Sometimes I listen to something and I'm just like, okay, it's over, and that's fine. And this was nice to have that replayability. I think, nowadays bands are doing shorter EPs, shorter singles for the replayability of it. Because the math is if you have a 2-minute song or a 3-minute song, it's easier to replay that and get 1 million listens than it is a 6-minute song. You're just statistically not going to get it as fast. So I get why bands do that, but I think these guys found this perfect like 3 to 5 minute window where it doesn't ever feel like a short single, but it also doesn't get that freebirdism about it where you're just like, oh my God, end it already. You know what I mean? Like they don't overstay their welcome. And I think that's a really good thing to do when you're playing heavier music, is you don't want to be overbearing or over cumbersome towards somebody. And a lot of the times with heavier bands, I feel like the theme is let's go as hard as we can and put out fucking 18 tracks. Yeah. And I'm like, I get exhausted by that. So it's nice to see an EP that just it's welcome where it is. It doesn't overstay its welcome, and it punches you in the face for 30 minutes and wants you to come back. Like you have that feeling where I'm not just over it and done. Like honestly, dude, we listen to a lot of music on this show, and I will say 25% of it is stuff that I'm going to go back and listen to. And every album we review, I'm probably saving like 3 or 4 of those songs this is one where I could see myself re-listening to those just in any order. Like, so I really enjoyed it. I think Enterprise Earth is kind of turning a new corner, you know, and solidifying themselves a little more in the heavier scene.
Again, like, I can't really agree with you more. It's it doesn't do too much, but what's there is super impactful and rememberable. And you know, there's actually like if you look at the landscape of entertainment in general, I think that that's something that bands should probably strive to do, is find their, well, it sounds stupid to say find their lane, because like, yeah, well, no shit, buddy, but like,
I guess just like stick to the pocket, you know.
What are you good at? And but also without having to sacrifice, like, we should do this because people like it. You make what you want to make, and if it shows, it shows, and that shines here as well. Like, it's been a couple of times. But when you talk about entertainment in general, a lot of people are talking about like, hey, it's taking like 8 years for this video game to get made, and then it's like 65, 70 hours. And like, we're grateful, but there's like, just end. Like, okay, where's the epilogue? Like, there's like 9 epilogues in this. Or with TV, where it's gotten to the point where, yeah, like your 8 to 10 show episodic series that are all like 45 minutes versus like having to digest a 3-hour movie, which again, still in the long run actually gives you more content with much more variability. To tie it around circle, I think that there's something that, again, we've said pop music does really well, is that pop and rap and that kind of stuff, when you just look at music in general, have really changed the landscape of how music is released, put out, formatted, what works, what hits algorithms. Like, all of that's been championed by like some of the more like radio friendly pop music of the day. And like you said, that if you have 2-minute songs or so, and it's like one hook, one refrain, and someone likes it, like, oh, let me hear that again. That's another play, instead of doing all of that. But at the same time, people are dying for content that's long form. And like, it's the same. That's what the hardest part of all creation is that we do like hour and a half something shows, and like, then we also still have to chop it up into TikToks and little bits, because then people's hamster brain can keep that in their head, and like, actually then it drives engagement. Sure, there's the science behind it, but it's more, this is how content is soaked in by the mainstream anybody nowadays. And super fans, or people that are really into something, will always do the long form research. If you really care that much, or it drags you in that much, you'll always do it. And I know this is more of like a grandiose, like, we're talking about entertainment in general at this point, but I think it stands super true that these guys have found the pocket where we're making the songs that we want to make. We're giving them to you in a digestible format that isn't too long, but it's certainly not asking you to like, I want the song to keep going kind of thing. And they stopped it after 6 songs and told the full story, and didn't try and get cute with it and do any more or go any farther. They perfected what they had, shaved it all the way down to like stone, and then said, this is what we're going to do. And I can only hope that anybody, whether you're a YouTuber, a band, a TV creator, like, that's the pocket you want to find. And it really, it's like, I'm proud of them, but like, I couldn't be happier for someone who seems like, I don't really say this a lot about all the albums here, is that regardless of like the content of the music itself, which I think is good, this just, it stands out. Like, it is so, and besides the music and how varying and different it is stands out, it just seems like they did exactly what they were supposed to do and set out to want to achieve. And it's really nice. It's just nice to see a complete fucking product that you're like, and it's digestible, do it again. And like, I have nothing, honestly, but good things to say about this album overall. The guitar tone, monster. Drums, we already went over, are like fucking menacing, and they're great, and they fill their space. Bass tone, modern, crunchy, really good. And dude, what can I say about the 5 different styles of gurgling to screaming, and the things that reminded me of Suicide Silence, all the way to Black
his
Dahlia.
vocal layering was immaculate,
insane, and like, the cleanness. You can understand so much,
which is so rare, you know, in this kind of industry. Like, it's very, people joke about metal being unlegible, and I mean, it is true. You know, a lot of it requires a dedicated ear and an acquired taste, but it's it's nice to get, you know, vocals that are that clear and that are that legible, and
Skilled.
you don't have to work at it. You know what I mean? Like back in the high school days, I remember we had friends in heavier bands as well, and they would joke that no one understood what they were saying. And I thought that's funny, but at the same time, you're holding yourself back from a whole demographic of people that want to know what you're saying. So
True.
it's nice. It's a nice change of pace. I think that's probably the theme of this EP for me, is it's a nice change of pace, especially for them. So I hope Enterprise keeps it up. I hope they wow us with another release in a year or two, and maybe figure out where they want to go from here. You know, I think this is a good stepping stone for them to figure that out and really figure where they want to grow and evolve as a band, because I feel like these guys are never going to stop evolving. And I think that's great. I'm excited for that. So
yeah, dude, 100%. Like I said, if you're an international listener of ours, because we do have some, which is really cool. They're all over Europe, like we said before. They're everywhere, from France to Germany to Italy, Spain, like everything, not just Great Britain or something. So
yeah,
and that implies to me that, you know, they're going out there so they can just let the numbers rack up and get this as tight as possible on tour and really show it to a new market that's outside of their range. Being an American band, and then coming back and probably getting on a similar kind of tour where if they don't do a headline, because they're headlining it themselves across Europe, but I could see them coming back and probably getting on like a bigger tour to promote this one straight through.
For sure.
Like a huge headliner again. So good for them. Again, go run it up for them.
Yeah,
I think it's
into madness.
Yeah, I think it's well worth 25 minutes of your time, especially like I said, if you're into metal, wherever you are, it's going to give you something. Like we reviewed like Paleface Swiss, and I was like, dude, put this on in the gym when you're trying to punch your dick through a wall, dude. Like you got to be angry to get into this one, but like this is just a fucking fantastic melodic metal album. I
for sure.
So yeah, check. Well, we're gonna try and get them back on just to break the wall again.
I think maybe after their tour, we'll reach out here at the end of that tour and see if they have some more time to maybe come back and talk more about the EP. Yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. But Dustin, I think it's time to pay the bills. We got some shit to shout out, right?
Always we do. Yeah, we'll start with one, Discord, because Discord is the free, most direct way just to come hang out with us. And if you want to be a real sweetheart about stuff, and you can boost the server, which helps us get all sorts of game nights and all sorts of stuff that we do in there. We're playing games with people. There's a million communities in there. You can't miss it. Discord.gg/Metal Massacre. And that's a free way to just hang out with us, support us. And besides clicking like and subscribe and share on everything you're doing, just one click really puts us in the feed.
Yeah, that's the best way, like he said, to get a hold of us first off. So if you have a question about the show, you have a recommendation for an album review, or you just want to share some funny fucking memes, that Discord server is really the place to do it. And, you know, we've amassed about 300 metalheads and goobers and weirdos throughout the last couple of years. And I'm really happy with that community. You know, I think I hang out in there almost every single night playing games. Last night, me and the boys played Escape the Backrooms until Jan Michael just pissed Ryan off, because it's Jan Michael and he's probably stoned, but it was really funny.
I can't do this anymore.
It was really funny. Ryan just kept carrying us through back rooms because we kept dying, and I was just like, well, let Ryan do it. And it got to a point where he was just trolling him, and I'm like, oh my God, this is getting dangerous. So
we're hanging out in there.
I had to call it at like 1 a.m. I was like, all right, boys, I think I'm done. But yeah, Discord's a really good time. It's the best way to get a hold of us. Also, we do have a Patreon account. If you want a little bit extra, we've got some stuff you can't find anywhere else. Patreon.com/Metal Massacre. If you want to support the show, you can always boost the server, but that's kind of the best way to get something out of it, get something back. You get that content is that Patreon. So check us out there if you haven't. And of course, if you're watching us on YouTube, hit the bell. Don't miss a video. We've got a couple really cool interviews coming up after this one this season. We're also going to touch local again and get someone on from the Omaha scene. And of course, we got a couple more Lucian and Dusty episodes in the can to do. So
things planned.
A lot of stuff. Season 3 is like trucking along, my friend. And
we're killing it. We're on a roll. And then lastly, as always, just want to say big shout out to Big Dobbs, beardbalm.com. if it's based here in Omaha, which again, we love our town. We love to work with someone that's willing to sponsor us and give us a promo code, which is just metal for 20% off your whole order. But they got a little bit of everything for everybody. Obviously, if you got a beard, you're going to have a lot of stuff right up that alley, oils, creams, stuff to like soothe it, make it look good, smoothing it out, and also just hair care, but also lots of I use the tattoo glue on my knuckles like almost every single day.
Yeah.
Because they're already done. It just freshens them up. They got brightening sticks. I love their products. They smell great.
I met him at a Static X concert that my wife drugged me to.
And here we are.
She was like, we got to go to this fucking show. And I was like, fine. All right. Like, let's go. And then I became a Static X fan after that show. But I met Dobbs at that show and he comes up to me and I'm just smoking my vape outside. And he just goes, hey, man, there's some good tattoos there. Can I put some cream on them? And I was just like, sure.
Yeah.
He took the stick and he starts putting it on, explaining the product. And I was like really impressed by this guy's salesman techniques, but also just like how he communicates with people. Really, I instantly knew. I was like, this is a guy we need to work with. So,
straight talker, Alan Dobb, good dude. Like I said,
really
Big Dobbs, beardbalm.com. Promo code metal gets you 20% off everything. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not speaking out of turn when I say he just like revamped his whole product line with higher quality ingredients because he's been getting some success. So it's new smells, new ingredients, smoother, better. And the stuff that I have, whatever you're buying is even better. And I love what I have. So shout out to him. Join our Patreon, head up to the Discord. There are plenty of free ways to support us. We're not ever begging for anything, but if you love us because we love you, help us out. So
hell yeah. Well, thanks for listening, guys. This has been Metal Massacre. Our Enterprise Earth episode, I guess we could say.
Yeah.
Next up in the can, we've got Cam Pipes from 3 Inches of Blood. So look forward to that one. I know we have a couple clips right now on socials. And yeah, we'll keep making them if you keep listening.
Yeah. Well, awesome. I will let you get back to your Sunday, my good man. It is time to game. But